Have you ever wondered what it takes to be a really great executive, whether it's a CEO, a CRO, a CMO, a chief client officer? What does it take to do that? Get acquired, make success, return, keep learning, keep leveling up your team, and succeed in such a way that the board goes, here's more. Well, that is the conversation I had today with Amber Winter, and I'm delighted that you're about to hear this. I started this conversation thinking we were going to talk about using AI for learning as an executive, and we'd certainly start there. But we rapidly moved into the territory of what it actually means to be one of these extraordinary leaders who can just turn her hand at so many different things. Amber has so many insights here. And indeed, Amber Winter is the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer at Sweet Dynamics today, but she's previously been a CEO who's gone through a successful acquisition, a Chief Client Officer. She has touched so many parts of business successfully, and there's been so many learnings along the way. And she brings that to every moment of her presence in her leadership today. And that's the conversation we're sharing with you. So if nothing else, get a pen and paper out. This is definitely one to take some notes. I want you thinking throughout this conversation, what am I doing that isn't hitting the mark that I could do differently based on what I learn in this podcast? Get your pen and paper out, virtual or otherwise. Maybe get ready to take some voice notes on your phone, pause the podcast, take a voice note. But I really want this to be one of those episodes where you go, I'm going to try this one thing off the back of this conversation. After all, why are we here? Why are we having this podcast if it's not to become better leaders? Without further ado, let's get Amber onto the show. Welcome to the show, Amber. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on your podcast.
Well, let's start off with all about you. Tell us about yourself, how you came to the work you do today. What was that journey? And how did you become a CRO in technology?
Yeah, I'd love to share my story. So I have a background in marketing. I started my first role as a marketing coordinator position, and it was kind of the perfect storm. It was a small company that was growing, but had also been around for about 20 years. And I quickly learned to love talking to our customers, talking to our prospects, which landed me in sales, which I never really thought I'd be in sales, having a marketing degree and a background. But the two and two just go so hand in hand at a small company that it was kind of all I was doing. And so being in the sales role, sales leadership, and kind of growing up in sales at the company, helping the company grow, learned really how to scale our sales model and get more customers on board. And then from there, I just tried to solve all the problems at the business that come when you have more customers. Yeah. So learning about implementing the software, I was fortunate to be working under John Alexson, the founder of the company, who anytime I kind of saw an opportunity to change or do something different at the company, he really let me run with it. And so I early on in my career had this mentor that really gave me that opportunity to continue to learn about the business and all aspects of the business, and encouraged me to think about things differently and solve problems in a different way than the company had done before. So within an 8-year time period, I went from a marketing coordinator to being the CEO of the company and helping the business go through an acquisition. So we eventually sold the business. And that was really the best MBA I could have asked for, and a really valuable learning experience early on in my career. And that's what led me to my current role as CRO. I didn't get to spend enough time learning how to scale sales. So when I found this opportunity at Sweet Dynamics, I was excited to go back into the sales leadership role and really learn how to scale a company from our current size to hopefully much larger.
Well, I know today part of what you're embracing is AI for continuous learning. So let's talk about that a little bit. How does that fit into your career path? Why did you come to me and talk about the fact that you love AI as a tool for learning, especially as an executive? Because I think that's the bit that really struck me as, wait, hold on. You're an executive willing to say that not just should the company use AI, but that I, as an executive, need to learn by using AI. So tell me a little bit about this.
Yes, I have fallen in love with AI, and it's been like a very quick journey. A lot of the tools that I use today and exist today weren't here 6 months ago. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the neatest things that's happening right now. As an executive, I have been fortunate to be in peer groups like Vistage and have other learning resources, but a lot of that is kind of taking you out of the business and learning um, more strategic long term. And I have always kind of been missing that just in time learning. So, one thing that AI has done for me as an executive is given me this tool that based on the actual problems we're facing right now in the business, I can have these kind of private learning conversations and open up my knowledge to think about other options that I may not have considered before. Especially as a woman in tech, I feel like I have often tried to always
Mm-hmm.
go into meetings knowing, like, you always think you have to have all the answers, which you don't. But having these tools has helped me feel even more prepared and think about things differently and kind of see some of my own blind spots that I wouldn't have recognized if I didn't have these tools as an executive.
I love that. I actually am encouraged, even though I'm a coach, I encourage people to do some basic coaching of with for themselves with AI. Now, it's not yet able to like do things like, hey, so I'm seeing like this pattern. It doesn't engage you enough. I don't think, because it's all coming from us still. We've got to prompt it to prompt us. Whereas as a coach, I will quite often call out and be like, so I've just seen this going on for like the last 3 weeks. What's going on there? Right? It's not able to replace that side of coaching, which is why, I've still got a job. But there is so much you can do with AI in terms of just, as you say, feeling more prepared, maybe helping you think through things. And I love that the note there about blind spots, which brings me to why I think what you're doing is a little bit different, really, from many of the executives I know. Many, not all, but you are open about this. So many of the executives I know are excited to embrace learning as a company. They know that that's how a company grows. We've got to learn, which often means failure. We pick up the pieces and we go, what could we do differently next time? And it's a great thing. And great executives know this. But so many of those executives, when I actually dig into it, them as individuals, they're still afraid of failure and learning for themselves. And I think that's one of the things when you were talking to me, you are not afraid of learning and failing as an individual, even though you're a tech executive. Does that come from using AI? Was that already there? What's going on there with you? Like, why do you think you're a little bit different from the average I see, small sample size, but what do you think is different?
Yeah, that is interesting. I don't think that comes from AI. Early in my career, John, the founder of Web Courseworks, my first role, he taught me this concept of tour of duty. So you're on like a tour of duty anytime you accept a new role. And in that tour, you have, things that you want to accomplish and are going to accomplish. But once your tour is over, you might not be challenged anymore and you might need a new tour of duty. So I guess I've always just kind of approached each role, everything that I'm doing in this concept of like, it almost has a start and an end. And my job is to learn how to do my best in that start and an end. And that's just like kind of created this mentality of continuously learning and improving and doing something better because something else will come next. And who knows, like when this part of what I'm doing is not going to be here anymore. And so I think that created this like culture of just continuous learning for myself and always thinking about like there will be another tour, there will be something else next. So I can't like get comfortable. I can't, just like let this be. I have to do the best that I can and keep learning something else because it's going to change. Like change is inevitable. We have to continue to learn and grow. And now I just feel like we have more tools to do that even faster and better and be better at whatever tour we're on right now.
I love that. Well, let's talk specifically about how you use AI today. Like, what are some of the practical tactics you use to incorporate AI into this learning, this professional development, like a routine you have maybe for like embedding this in every day, not just for like, I think most of us now use it for like writing emails and difficult documents. It kind of like, it's it's a massive like writer's unblocker for me. Like it's huge. Whenever I'm like, I don't know how to say this, I'll just like ask AI, like, how can I say this better? I think most of us are using it that day to day, but how are you using it every day for your professional development?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. My husband jokes that I talk to Claude more than I talk to him sometimes, and that might be true. I have conversations with Claude on my way to work, and most times I'm trying to prepare for whether it's a meeting or just like if I'm thinking about a problem at the business, I am having a conversation about that problem and kind of scenario planning and thinking, okay, well, what if we did this? What am I not thinking through? And I like the kind of voice mode because then I can just like throw everything out there and give all the context I want, and then get some interesting thoughts back. So I use it that way, just as like a conversational tool while I'm driving to help me think through problems. But then I also am a huge fan of the projects functionality in Claude. It's the same in ChatGPT, the agent functionality. So those two are the same, but I don't know. I guess I use Claude more. And for each of our brands, we've created this kind of long form document that talks about our ICP, our target market, our client case studies, our strategy for the next 5 years. And so I've got that long form document, and then our team and myself, I'm using that project context to really get even deeper into our business and, do, craft emails and things like that, but even more about, hey, these are our top 10 deals in our pipeline. Like, what are we missing? What could we leverage to move these deals faster? How could we improve our close rate? And now with Claude's like deep analysis mode, it can go even deeper and really help you do more research and better understand your prospects. So I love it from a sales perspective where we're just so much more efficient. We can get more done. We can have better conversations with our prospects and clients because we are able to prepare like we never could before.
Well, that's really interesting from the sales perspective. Do you see that also? It's obviously a different aspect of the business, but how's that play out in CRO? I presume as a CRO, you're probably responsible for marketing as well. Is that true?
Yes.
But because I can see it's so easy to see how that works with sales. How's that work with marketing? And then beyond potentially your responsibilities, how's it work? I don't know if you're responsible for customer success, product development. How do you see that ability to understand through the use of AI? You mentioned asking AI, like, what can we leverage? How can we move deals faster? How can we improve our close rate? What would be the equivalent in marketing and maybe the equivalent in other aspects of a business that an executive is responsible for?
Yeah. So I love thinking about this, and I think about it every day. How can I help everyone at the company kind of have their own agent
That's so cool, by the way.
Understands our business so deeply?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is something I really want listeners to take home. If you're an executive, you should be thinking beyond your immediate responsibilities. And I love that you're thinking that way, Amber. I love that you're saying, how can I help everybody in the company have an agent that helps them do that? Sorry to interrupt. That's just such an important point to be always thinking beyond your immediate remit as an executive is like core to being successful. Sorry. Carry on, Amber.
No, yeah. Yeah. So I for marketing, we use it to improve our messaging. So we say, hey, we really now want to have, we've had a lot of success in this target audience. Review our website. Here's our content right now. How can this be even better and more personalized for that audience? So honing in our messaging to our target audience is really important from a marketing team's perspective. But we also kind of use it just for like project management and prioritization at a small company. Like every time we meet, we feel like our list grows longer and longer. So then we say, okay, here's all the things that we've talked about in our meeting. Tell us which one should be the most important. And we love doing that because we feel like we have blind spots or we get excited about things that are so immediate, but then we kind of use that objective AI coach to say, well, actually, you need to do this week. And if you don't, you're not really following your strategy for the year. So it's kind of just a partner in action. And when you're executing in a business, you can get so into every minor detail.
Yeah.
And I feel like it kind of brings you back up to like, okay, these are our objectives for the year. And as a leader, I try to do that with, OKRs and keeping people thinking about those top line objectives that we have. But I feel like having kind of that objective friend can just make it easier to bring you back to what really is going to make a difference. What's going to be the most impactful thing I can do today, and use my like real human time on. And I think that's where we all need to focus more, is what can we do that's going to bring the biggest impact.
Well, what do you see are the challenges that you face today? Because it's clear you're very successful at what you do. It's clear you're really good at using AI to help you move through things, to self-coach. So what do you struggle with day to day, and how do you work through them?
I don't know that it's so clear because I've definitely learned through some failure. I had someone, it wasn't even that long ago, maybe a month ago, ask me, like, do you just like to really create these long documents? Because we don't have time to read them. And I was like, oh, that was a learning opportunity for me, that I'm using this in the wrong way. So, I still struggle with, how do you balance leveraging AI to kind of brainstorm and iterate and think about different strategies, but then how do you bring it back to your team in a way that people can understand and like really bring people along for that journey? And I feel like that's always a challenge of a leader and an executive, is you've been thinking about this strategy maybe for months, but how do you bring your team along? Because you have to be thinking and being kind of ahead of the game, but then you've got to kind of go back and bring them along for that journey. So that's something I'm still struggling with and struggle with every day, is like, okay, how do I pare this down? What is important to communicate? What's not important to communicate? And how do I make this relevant to my people, to the people doing the work every single day? How do I make sure they see how it contributes to our long-term vision?
I think that's so important. It's so fascinating you say, like, you've had that comment about long documents, because I fall into exactly the same trap. I write documents as a way of like explaining my thinking, my thought process. And I think people do this with like spreadsheets, with slide decks in particular. So people spend hours putting together 100 slides. And I'm like, that is not the document. As a coach, I can see that is not what you're going to share with anybody else in the company. If they ask for your thinking, sure, you can bring up a relevant slide, but nobody else needs to see those 100 slides. And I've shared recently a 50-page document with my team. And I said to them, you don't need to read it all. And they're like, yeah, but where do we start? Because we're looking at all the things we sell. Is this what our community needs? Does it fulfill our mission and vision of changing the world through coaching women in tech? And I asked my team to read it. So it's so funny that you say that, like, these long documents are something that I think AI is helping us do really well. And it's great because it does capture all the things that are swirling in our heads. But then we've got to remember that really important step of bringing it back to the team. As you say, as a leader, your job is to bring the team along with you. You can have great ideas, but if you're in a vacuum, you're not changing the world. You're not leading. So tell me, this pivot to being a leader. What would you say are the biggest challenges you have in your leadership today, maybe in the past, that you've learned about as well? Like, what do you see as the hardest thing for you?
The hardest thing for me is I'm a doer. Like I like to lead by doing. So I struggle with not having to do the doing and making sure that I'm continuously helping my team execute and do things, and giving them the space and the trust, and kind of matching that with accountability. I've continued to struggle with this. I think it's just kind of an evolution of a leader, that you kind of go through this path of, when you first become a leader, it's hard to let go. You're really doing that transition. And then as you get further away from the one actually doing all of the work all of the time, and your scope has to get broader, you really can't be able to do everything. You really learn, how can I be most impactful for that individual? And for me, there's still sometimes last week we got an RFP in and I was like, oh, let me do the RFP. I love RFPs. Like, I just want to sit down and do the RFP. And yeah, that's probably not the right thing that I should be doing. But there's just things that I still struggle that, I enjoy doing. And so letting go of those things that you enjoy sometimes, I think as a leader can be hard. But it's, balancing that with still staying relevant and understanding your team's jobs and what they're going through and their challenges. So I don't think it's necessarily bad, but it's something you have to be aware of. Like, okay, yeah, not something I should be doing, but hey, let me help because I like to.
It's so funny you say that, because I see people holding on to two things: the things they love doing, and that can so often hold up a business. Like, holding on to an RFP, potentially it takes you longer to get it out the door because of all your other responsibilities, and your team could do a first draft and then you just improve it. But then I see people also holding on to things where it's because they don't trust the people around them. And I'm a big believer, if you have something really important as a leader, you have to own it, but that doesn't mean you can't delegate. And I think this is something that a lot of us struggle with, is own but delegate. It's because it's a really high priority. Like, for example, I had a client a few years ago who was she was head of finance, rolling out a new financial system to the entire global company, and if it didn't work, it was going to cost the company billions. And she was like, I'm really struggling to delegate this because I don't want to give over ownership of this, because if it fails, it's such a big risk. I was like, you shouldn't be delegating the outcome. Because for something so high profile, that is exactly what an executive delegates the actions of, but keeps the outcome. You need to keep your finger on the pulse a lot more than you would delegate other things. And I think that's something we all struggle with. And then the final thing people struggle with is when we over delegate because we don't love something. It's the opposite of you keeping the RFP. It's like, I don't like that, so I'm going to delegate it, which is great, unless the person that you delegate to isn't equipped to do it. And I think sometimes when we learn the power of delegating, we delegate because we don't want to do that thing, and then we drop the ball because actually that was important. Do you see yourself falling for that trap, or is it just more the I hold on to things kind of thing?
I probably have fallen into both for sure. Being in tech, I feel like we're a little bit more fortunate in that software businesses are built from the ground up with these accountability systems. Like, there's Jira tickets, there's ways of tracking the work that's being done. And I think that accountability helps leaders delegate by still like tracking and watching things. Mm-hmm. I probably have for sure delegated things I don't love to do. I don't know. I feel like I've learned a lot about trust-based leadership. And so I have definitely fallen into the over delegating more in marketing than in sales. Maybe there's something
interesting
there. But
yeah, is that because you're actually more comfortable in sales, even though you started in marketing, do you think?
Probably. Yeah.
Oh, there's a whole coaching conversation to have there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's probably true. So yeah, there have been times in my career where I've over delegated the marketing and then kind of had to wrap my arms back around it and figure out what's going on. And I definitely learned that, and balancing that through now, I balance that by just really paying attention to the metrics that matter and helping my team know, like, hey, this is what we're going to measure success on. And we can try there's lots of tactics to get that lead volume and that SQL conversion. So let's keep trying things, but we're going to be tracking it and monitoring it and talking about it so that we are all on the same page of what's working and what's not working. And that if I approach that delegation through learning, through an opportunity for my team to learn and myself to learn, then I'm more focused just on the accountability and the results. And it's really just like, we're all in this together. What are we doing that's working and that's not working? And measuring to make sure that we know if it is working or not. So I think that's part of it. But still, I think that'll be an ongoing thing throughout my career. I'm not sure if I'll ever crack the nut of, just finding something I really love to do and wanting to do it.
Yeah. I think that's I think it's one of the things we've got to appreciate as leaders is what we want to do will always change, but also equally, just because we want to do something doesn't mean we should. I always think one of the hardest things about being a leader is nothing we do is about us. I will often have clients asking me, so when do I get to be selfish? And I'm like, when you're at home. As a leader, your job is to always think about everybody else around you, because that's how you're a great leader. Like, what do they need? Why are they not moving forward the way that you need them to? There isn't a selfish element of you need them to do this, but it's more about the company needs this to be done. How can I make sure that this person is best equipped to do it? Why are they not showing up? How can I give them what they need to get there? And it seems like it's everybody other than us. Do you find that at all? Is that something that you've experienced as a leader?
Oh yeah, for sure. I right now I'm building this kind of agent, this AI agent, one for my sales team, one for the marketing team. And I'm thinking of it as like, how could you not need a CRO? Like, what if this company didn't need me?
Oh, I love
Because I
that
see that as
question.
my job. How can they operate without me? Then they're successful on their own. And how can they learn how to use these tools themselves without just me using it for them? So I love that concept of just work yourself out of a job and you will be the right leader for your team. If they don't need you, you're doing a good job as a leader. And not, I'll sometimes say that to my team and they're like, oh no, like we really want to have these conversations. And like, I'm not really going anywhere. I just want you to feel and actually be empowered to make decisions yourself and know the thought process and think through and just like have that. And then leadership becomes more mentorship and coaching
Yeah, yeah.
and, like really thinking about the long-term vision of the company and then bringing that back, which I think is a really vital aspect of leadership, but it's less about the like day-to-day, I need to go ask my manager or I need to get approval. That's not leadership.
Well, it also frees you up to do bigger things. And, if you're in a growing company, and we live in a growth culture where everything is about growth, right? One of the things I say to my clients a lot when they have this kind of conversation with me, and they get a little bit panicky, some of them, of, well, I hear you, Tony, that I should get my team to do more and free myself up. But then what do I do? Have I just fired myself? And I'm like, no, because ultimately, if your company is successful, you will need to up level. You need to solve bigger problems, different problems. While you're here doing the same stuff you've done for 3 years with your team, you don't have the brain space to be thinking up here, which means that if the company grows, somebody is going to be put in ahead of you. And instead, what you need to be saying is, how can I make myself unnecessary at this level so I'm ready for that level? And that's when you grow with the company rather than having somebody popped in ahead of you, which a lot of companies end up being pushed to do. They have a great person and they try to get that person in that role to grow the company, and that person's just not capable. They tick all the boxes on paper, but there's something missing, and it's quite often because they're still too hands-on. And I love seeing a leader who elevates themselves by elevating their team first. Get your team to do your job so you can lift up. You'll be astonished what you see when you are no longer in the weeds, right? Does that resonate with your approach?
100%. Absolutely. And I think I learned early in leadership that the more you can sell your people, the more case studies and things you can say to the board about how well your people are doing, that frees you up to do more. And so early, I always thought like, oh, I have to come with the results. I have to come with our marketing is doing this. I had this great idea. But now I've learned it's not about that at all. It's about, well, Matt had this great idea and closed this deal faster. And now we're going to apply that across the whole sales team because it's really improving how we're having discovery conversations. So it's more about lifting up your people and finding ways to elevate them in the team meeting to your board than it is about anything you do. And that does free you up then to be thinking about other things because you're speaking confidence about your people, giving them confidence themselves when you're doing those actions. So it is kind of like this snowball of when they hear you talking about them, they're more likely to even grab more and do more and have the confidence to grow more too.
I love that so much. And I just wish so many leaders, we've all had the bad leaders who are afraid to give credit to other people. I definitely think it's a fear thing that they hold on to the credit, they hold on to the kudos, and they think that's the way to get ahead. And what you've just described so beautifully epitomizes why that approach fails and why actually demonstrating that your team is doing this so you can let go and focus on something else is exactly what every company is really looking for. And that holding on to the credibility and kudos, which the fascinating thing is I've had clients come to me complain about their boss doing that. And then I hear, through coaching them that they're actually doing the same thing. They're mirroring it because they think it's the only way to succeed. So I'm hoping people listening to this, if you're like frustrated by it, watch out and see if you are doing it yourself, and listen to Amber here and her success that's come from really elevating her team and showcasing her team, which I love. Final question for you before we go into the quickfire round. What do you wish you'd known 10 years ago that you now know?
I wish that I knew that those people that were trying to give you advice, or those people spending time to have lunch with you, they are doing it because they want to see you succeed. And I feel like early in my career, I kind of thought I was owed that like mentor and that advice and that, that I was owed it because I was new and I was trying and I was working hard. But I wish I knew I could kind of go back and say like, no, like those are the people that are going to make your career. Those are the people in the relationships that you're going to go to when you need help. And nobody else, is stepping up to give you that time. And they're giving you their time, which is their most precious resource. So embrace it, be grateful for it, take the time. If someone's giving you that time, like take the time and get their perspective and ask them questions. And those are the people that are, those relationships are so important. And at some point in your career, you're going to be at a crossroads of, what do I do next? What did I learn? What do I want to do? What do I like to do? And you're going to look back and you're going to go to those people. So just be appreciative of them and spend the time with them and be grateful for them.
I really love that. I think so many of us do exactly what you say. We take it for granted. There's so many situations where earlier on in our careers, and I would say this about myself too, there's an expectation that I'm going to get the support, that I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that. And actually what we're asking is extracurricular activities of our fellow woman. And one of the things I'm so passionate about now is telling women there is an obligation to give back. You don't have to do it on your terms, because so many of us give back so much that we damage our careers right here and right now. And the biggest gift you can give, in my opinion, is showcasing to the women coming along behind you what success actually looks like. And that is not giving back all the time. That is giving back some of the time, but not at the expense of your career. Otherwise, we're not doing your women any favors. So I love that you've really embraced that lesson of it shouldn't be something we accept as normal or expected. It's something instead we should have immense gratitude for. And that just changes how we show up to those conversations, right? Hugely. Let's do the quickfire round. You ready for this?
Ready.
What is the worst piece of advice you've ever been given?
So early in my career, someone told me to stay in my lane, and I was asking about the product and wanted to know more. And it took me years to realize that really understanding every part of the business actually makes you a better leader, not a distracted leader. So don't follow that advice.
100%. That is a great thing to learn from that piece of advice. Never stay in your lane, ladies. Just don't. You will be told. Most of us get told that at some point, and it's terrible advice. People get threatened when you step on their toes, but that's not the reason to stay where you are. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I hired a CTO at Web Courseworks, and one of the first things he taught me was people are people, not resources. See, I thought I was going to learn from him all of these technical software engineering things, but really he taught me about empowering people and that we needed to treat our people as people, not resources to move around and allocate hours and think about billable and unbillable time. And that's always stuck with me, is like really think about people as people, not resources.
Yeah, 100%. I was just having a conversation with a client this morning who is so frustrated that the people that want to hire her right now a rule talking about the number of hours she's going to work. And I was like, why is it frustrating you? She's like, because I can do twice the amount of work compared to other people in the same amount of time, but I just want to work fewer hours. I want to be compensated for what I achieve rather than for what the number of hours I'm present. Otherwise, I'm not going to work very hard. And yeah, treat people like people. They aren't just, I love that. They aren't just a resource to be allotted to things. What is the last book you read and would you recommend it?
So the last book, I wish it was something on AI, but I'm also like a parenting guru and spend a lot of time learning about the science of my children. So the last book was How to Raise Successful People by Esther Wojcicki. I don't know if I said her name right. But she has some very successful children, the CEO of YouTube who had recently passed, but very successful children. It's a really interesting book about just the science behind parenting and thinking about the environment that we raise our children in. So I'd highly recommend if you have kiddos.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. That one will definitely be going in the show notes for anybody looking to learn a little bit about that. I know so many of the listeners are parents. How can people connect with you, find out more about what you do, learn from you, learn about what your company does as well?
Yeah, you can check me out on LinkedIn, Amber Winter. That's probably the best way to find me, and send me a message. I'd love to chat, have some coffee. Feel free to reach out and connect.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for offering to share your wisdom with the audience, not just on the actual show here, but connecting with you. I think that's such a gift, as we were talking about before. So listeners, don't take that lightly. If you think Amber is the kind of person that would give you something in your life that you're missing, if you think there's something you can learn from her, don't be afraid to reach out. The worst thing's going to happen, she's inundated and she takes a long time to get back to you, right? Such a huge gift. Thank you so much, Amber, for offering that, to have a coffee chat. I mean, that's the way the world is built, is through coffee chats. Mine are all virtual these days, but like, this is the way to build a great world. And we would have far fewer problems with coffee chats and cake, I think.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you so much for being on the show. What final thoughts do you want to leave everybody with today?
I want everybody to just remember that those people, the relationships you're building, those are really your superpower, and hold on to them, use them, talk to them. While AI is amazing and helps us in so many ways, you really get work done through your relationships and having real conversations with your customers, getting to know them, getting to know your prospects. Just like, business is less about all of the back end, and I think gonna, even in the future, become more and more about these real relationships that we form. So get out there, actually have coffee with people, and have these conversations, because that's our superpower as humans. And while we can leverage all these tools, who we know and what we're doing to help make the world a better place is what's most important.
Oh, I love that so much. What a beautiful way to end this episode. Your relationships are your superpower. I think it really goes to the heart of what I've loved to take away from this episode. So if you're listening, I would love for you to have a think. Where are you delegating well? Where are you not delegating well? Where are you holding on to things that maybe you shouldn't? Where are you delegating because it's uncomfortable for you to do them? Where are you not looking at the relationships around you as relationships and instead as a resource? How can you embrace the people around you better to lift not just the company up, but you up? I go back through this episode, take a few notes if you haven't already, and ask yourself, what is the one thing you're going to do differently based on this conversation? If you're feeling brave, drop me a DM on LinkedIn and tell me what is the one thing you're going to do differently as a result of listening to this conversation with Amber. Thank you, Amber, for being with us today. Thank you, listeners, for sharing this conversation with us. And I look forward to hearing from some of you, at least, around what you're going to do differently and how you're going to learn to be a better leader because of what you've heard on this show. Bye for now.